So, hi Chris, thanks for this interview and just a bit of a chat really. I wanted to go through, I suppose, where you've been and where you're going. I suppose because we've had various chats over the months at various events, and I kind of wanted to sit down with you and sort of what started your journey off. You know, how did you get to kind of almost be this spokesman and presenter and guy? So what was your first trigger
got me
point?
into electric vehicles and
exactly.
got me sparked into it?
Yeah.
I mean, I say this a lot, but I mean, predominantly my background's oil and gas, from living in the oil and gas capital. And then one day I was researching online about renewable energy, and I came across an advert for a Nissan Leaf.
Right.
And then I thought, that's a bit curious. So I jumped in, I borrowed one from a dealer, and I drove all 3 UK capital cities in a long weekend just to find out what it's all about, because everybody wants to know, even today, how long does it take to charge? Is there enough charge points? It's the same old thing. So I had those questions myself at that point, and that was back in 2012.
Right.
So I went and drove to find out what it was all about, and came back off that trip. Had an absolute nightmare charging in hotel windows and Asda's front entrance and places like that.
Was this the Land's End to John O'Groats?
No, this was prior to that.
Right,
so,
okay.
so let's say 2012, and it was, we drove, it was actually when I first met Jonathan Porterfield from EcoCars.
Yeah.
I was stranded at Leicester Forest East. I had an eco-tricity card.
Yep.
It wasn't working. Jonathan, we reached out on social media, because we were doing everything on social media at that point.
Yep.
And Jonathan got in contact, went, I'll be there in a minute,
Awesome.
like Jonathan is. Jonathan's just a lovely bloke. So he came out and he gave me a charge, gave me one of his eco-tricity cards, carried the trip on, and then I got home and just thought, this is the future. I love this. This is great. I mean, I am a massive petrol head.
Yeah.
It's one thing I don't say so much, but I am a massive petrol head. I love my cars. Ferrari F40 is my favourite car. Pagani Zonda is another hypercar that I love. But I absolutely know that electric was the future then. I just knew it. So I bought a Leaf, and because we shared everything on social media, I saw that everybody loved seeing electric vehicles being put in real world situations.
Because I suppose at that point, very new, questions.
There was about 50, 60 charges in the entire country.
Yeah.
So it was still very new. The cars weren't. The charging infrastructure was still very fledgling. So because people enjoyed it so much, and I love adventure and I love travelling. So I just thought, right, I'm going to get out and do more. And I bought my own car and went out and started doing it more. So that's how I kind of stumbled into it.
Yep.
I've just loved it ever since.
And what is it about an EV, like the difference? So I'm the same. A year ago, went from a diesel car to an EV. What was your kind of first experience with it? What was the bit that really
got hooked me into it?
Yeah.
I mean, I think for me, I mean, we all talk about the same things. We all talk about how it's instant torque, it's really fast. It's cheap to fuel, it's cheap to look after. But for me, it's the technology.
Right.
I just love the battery technology, everything around it, because you kind of think it's a battery powering a vehicle that we've predominantly thought of over the years of you have to put fuel in it.
Yep.
You have to have spark plugs, everything has to ignite. But you've got a battery that you would have in your mobile phone or your laptop, essentially in a car, that's powering a car, and you can drive from A to B. And I just loved that technology side of it.
So I suppose it's taken the principle of an old engine, sort of being a motorhead, and just a different form of propulsion.
It changed my whole. I had to change my whole way of thinking.
Yeah.
And it challenged my way of thinking. And I just thought, this is great. I love the whole philosophy behind this.
Yeah.
And I just thought it is far better, because I can go home. The whole predominantly you can go home and plug in.
Yeah.
I said I could fuel at home.
Yeah.
This works. So I went and did it. That really hooked it for me.
Excellent. That's really good. So then you've done several epic trips, I would say. And one of the reasons I spoke to, obviously Robert Llewellyn and Johnny this morning, said one of the reasons why I got into EVs was because of them, and the other reason, one of it is yours, watching what you did, was I live in a flat, so for me it seems completely impractical.
Yeah.
You made that completely practical by doing crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So what was your first kind of, the first big one? Was it the Land's End John O'Groats trip?
I mean, literally, for the people that don't really know, but myself and Jonathan, because of our relationship, we kind of got we got so friendly, and his enthusiasm for electric cars, we kind of thought, let's do something really mad together.
Yeah.
So we decided to John O'Groats to Land's End, but we decided to flip it on its head and go back again.
Right,
so we took a 24 kilowatt Leaf,
Yeah.
and the whole thing about how many times you could rapid charge the Leaf at the time,
Yeah.
nobody really knew. So it was to kind of test that theory as well. So we drove John O'Groats to Land's End.
Yeah.
We did it just over 20, it was about 26 hours, I think it was 27 hours.
Okay. Okay, so this comes back to the epic journey. So 26 hours, Land's End to John O'Groats.
Yeah, so we took a 24 kilowatt Leaf, and we decided we were going to drive down to John O'Groats.
Yep.
So from John O'Groats to Land's End, and then turn around and go back again. So, like I said, to answer the questions, a lot of people didn't know how many rapid charges you can hit a Nissan Leaf at the time.
Yep.
They thought it was only maybe 3, 4, maybe 5. So we wanted to test that theory. But the idea behind it was, well, we wanted to do a long distance journey, just to demonstrate that electric vehicles can go long distances, charging infrastructure is there,
Yep.
it's all reliable. So we got down to Land's End, it was about 26, 27 hours. We had a half an hour break, which was pretty much the time to recharge the Leaf,
Right.
and we turned around and drove back again.
And was it always the plan, presumably,
That
to
was
drive
always,
all the
yeah,
way
that
back?
was always the
Right.
plan. And the plan initially was to try and do it in 48 hours.
Yeah.
We nearly achieved it. We got to Perth, and there was a charging issue there, but we finally got the rapid charger sorted, and then we got on to the finishing line, and we got there in 52 hours. We hit the Leaf with 33 rapid charges throughout. That was consecutive, back to back.
And this got to be like, this is back in the day when Leafs were very new, and like you said, no one knew what they were capable of. And
The Leaf, predominantly is still the biggest, but Leaf was the car, the electric car at the time.
Very much
and
so.
Tesla, there was the Roadster, but the Model S was starting to come about, but the Leaf was really the car. And people didn't really, like I said, didn't really understand how good and how capable the battery was and the charging infrastructure was on it. So,
And there still are questions, aren't there? You as well as I know, newbies, and I was one of them. Over a year ago, you'd ask those simple questions. It's like, well, you have to get rid of the battery after X amount of years, won't you? And what's the range? And you still get that, but I'm finding it that the conversations are easier now. Whereas I would imagine back then, it was very much almost conceived as witchcraft, as driving an electric car for that distance.
I think I'll agree on that point. It's like the conversations are getting easier. Majority of people are a bit more open to the conversation now, and more they want to understand rather than just kind of point the finger and go, yeah, but they take too long to charge, the batteries don't want, and they dismiss it. So but back then it was very much like, yeah, but the batteries, they don't last very long, and I'm not doing that, and they would just dismiss the whole thing. But today, the conversations are a lot easier.
So moving on from that journey, then it seems that that wasn't enough, and then you decided to do something else crazy.
Yeah.
So what was next in terms of
the next one?
you done an Edinburgh to Monte Carlo, didn't you?
The next one was Edinburgh to Monte Carlo, and that was the first time a good friend of mine had an idea to go to Formula E. He actually invited me to Formula E to go from Edinburgh to London to Formula E.
Awesome.
And I was like, yep, great. And we were going to go on a BMW i3, and I said, I'll come along, but if we can do it my way. And he was like, what is that? I was like, well, I've always wanted to drive around Monte Carlo. It's my most favourite racing circuit.
Yeah.
And he goes, right, okay, but we're leaving Edinburgh on in 2 days. I was like, yeah, that's fine. It's like I was like, so we'll get there. So 60 hours. We drove from Edinburgh to Monte Carlo, turned around, went to London, and then back up to Edinburgh in 60 hours.
Wow.
And that was about 2,500 miles. Yeah, pretty much 2,500 miles. I've never been invited on another trip or event with him again. So I think that pretty much says
broken people.
Yeah, we're still friends, but he just never invites me
At a
anywhere.
distance.
So so I think that's pretty much a good judge, and that's why I think a lot of people don't invite me on road trips with them, because it's...
Yeah, I mean, I've seen them, I look at them, I'm thinking, that's amazing. I mean, my idea of a journey is maybe up to Scotland, things like that, but...
Yeah, I mean, I do take things to the extreme, and that's pretty much just because that's the way my brain works. I love to challenge the norm.
Yeah.
And prove to people what is possible. And predominantly, I'm still proving to the manufacturers themselves what's possible. And that's some of the work I do, is working with manufacturers. I do work behind the scenes that people don't see.
Yeah.
just to show the manufacturers what their car can do or what the challenges are with the car, and some of the challenges maybe the car faces on the infrastructure.
Yeah, and I think certainly that cause has helped certainly recently with, again, it comes back to those age-old questions, but with doing things like that, like I said, for me was seeing stuff like that was like, well, my problems are very insignificant when it comes to it. You know,
Yeah.
I do a 75-mile round journey, and there's this guy that drives 2,000, 3,000 miles. So it's like, yeah, you know.
But the reality of that is that when people say, so what do you drive then? It's like a 24 kilowatt Leaf.
Yeah.
That's my everyday car. So people assume that I've got some big massive battery car and I drive hundreds. But I don't. I have 24 kilowatt Leaf, and I love it.
Yeah.
And that's not an advert for Nissan. That's just I still have the car.
It's a car that you instantly like and fall in love
And the
with.
reality is that for what people do, like what I do day to day, it's perfectly fine. I mean, batteries are getting bigger, and that's a comfort factor for a lot of the public because they want to have that big battery range, the big range, although they're never going to need it most of the time, but it's a comfort blanket essentially for them.
Yeah.
And then once they've got it and they're using it, they think, actually, I don't need it really, but it's just nice to have.
Excellent. And then you decided to do a Mongo Rally.
Yeah.
Which to me was probably the most epic thing I've ever heard about. In itself, crazy, but to do it in a Nissan Leaf again, wasn't it?
Yeah.
10,000 miles.
Yeah, we actually, the rally is a 10,000 mile rally, but it depends, because you make up your own entire route.
Okay, so you go through countries and...
So the idea behind the Mongo Rally, I've known about it for years. It's been going itself for about 12 to 14 years. And it's have about 250 to 300 entrants every year.
Yep.
And the idea behind it is you take no bigger than a 1.2 litre car, completely unsuitable, and everybody admitted yes, completely unsuitable, and basically a rusty old 500-pound banger.
Yep.
And you do the rally. Now, I had to speak to the organisers because obviously I wasn't taking a 500-pound rusty banger. But the fact, obviously, the challenge that I had with charging was making it completely unsuitable. So they were happy to let me enter. And then we planned our route. So we took pretty much the same route as everybody else. We went through Europe into Romania, Bulgaria, and we had the rapid charging infrastructure there, which was great. So we could cover about 500-600 miles a day.
Yeah.
And the idea behind that was get ahead of the game every single day. So while it sounded amazing, and like everything that people see, social media makes everything look amazing.
Glamorous.
We were living at a petrol station, service station. So if you think about here, motor services, welcome breaks, that was our life. Because my wife was my co-driver.
Right, okay.
That was our life for literally 7 to 10 days, and just constantly on the go and sleeping in the car. So the car was our hotel for about 80% of the rally.
Yeah.
And when we got to Turkey, that was when the infrastructure stopped.
So it literally just disappeared.
So there's a couple of fast chargers in Turkey. It's a fledgling infrastructure, but literally we had one or two along our way, but it was just 2-pin plugs. And that was the element. So it was great proving that electric cars can go long distance. So it's proving that they can go long distance.
Yeah.
And the idea behind it was then to say, without charging infrastructure, because everybody says you need charging infrastructure before we can have electric cars.
Yeah.
I'm going to countries that don't have charging infrastructure to show that you don't actually need that.
And actually the charging infrastructure before electric cars was there.
Yeah. And the fact is, because people think big shiny boxes, that's what you need. And no. We're in a charge point just now.
Yes. 3-pin plug or 2-pin plug in this case.
So from there, all I did was mapped every 80 to 90 miles, a town, a village, a building, whatever, and we just turned up and said, hey, can we plug in? And that was all the way through Turkey, Georgia, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and Russia.
So not the most hospitable places.
No. And that was the thing, and we thought,
not people-wise, country maybe like environment.
We thought, I mean, when you think about Turkey at the time, there was a lot of political unrest and everything in Turkey. We saw none of that, absolutely none of that. I mean, literally, everybody was so kind, caring. We got places to stay, we got food all the time. Nobody would take any money off us for charging, and that story just carried on throughout the whole rally.
And was it very much like when you turned up, it was more curious than anything else? Is that no engine?
Yeah.
I need somewhere to plug. What was the questions that you got?
When you explained, that was the thing as well. We were having to all do this in through Google Translate because we didn't speak the language.
Yeah.
We came across people that had a grasp of English or some people that had good English, which was great, but predominantly it was Google Translate. So trying to ask for a charge and explain an electric vehicle through Google Translate was quite difficult, but a lot of people in Turkey knew about the technology and knew there's electric cars, but never really seen many. But then in Kazakhstan, and then in Russia, and on the east side of Russia, it was completely a new phenomenon for them. And the great thing is, when we went through Kazakhstan, the engagement was fantastic. If you've watched Charlie Borman and Ewan McGregor's One Way Round, One Way Down,
absolutely loved it.
That's what happened to us. We got into Kazakhstan, we got police escorts on the west side. It was really embarrassing. We ended up ditching them in the end because they were slowing us down, which was strange to think when we're only driving 80 miles and charging for 4 hours, and then moving on and charging overnight. The handover between police on different areas was just.
I suppose I want to pick on that point that you just said around charging for 4 hours.
Yeah.
So predominantly now, when you ask someone how long does it take to charge, specifically at home, like people will think, like the questions I get is, oh, you have to leave it for hours and hours and hours and hours. But actually, when you was doing that, you was there plugged in for 4 hours.
Yeah, so we would wake up in the morning with a full charge. Yeah. Because we've been charging overnight. We'd drive for about 40 miles, 50 miles, because we would get about 10 miles an hour back in the battery when we were charging. So we drive for about 40, 50 miles, find a place, generally a cafe or a random building in the middle of nowhere, an industrial estate, and just ask if we can charge.
Yep.
And then we would charge for that 4 or 5 hours, and then we would move on we actually set up a deal with Kazmunigas, the state petrol company.
Right. Okay.
Ironically, but when they heard about the story, they were like, we will put 2-pin plugs in all of our petrol stations along your route.
Wow.
So it allowed us to fill in some of the gaps.
Yeah.
So we generally aim for there, and then we just plug in and we sleep overnight. Which again is great, but we're sleeping overnight in petrol stations.
Yeah, in your car.
In my car. And you'd wake up you'd be lying there trying to get some sleep, and you just, you get that sixth sense when you think somebody's staring at you.
Yeah.
And you turn and look at the window, and there's like a face there, and and it was people just staring, kind of going,
what are you doing?
And then you get out of the car, you're chatting with people. So there's some days I would go 30, 35 hours without much sleep, because so much explanation and educating people about electric vehicles. They all thought it was maybe a hybrid.
Yeah.
So you're explaining all this to them, and it was not a big deal because it was actually what we were there for.
Yeah.
And it actually turned out that when we went to Astana, the capital of Kazakhstan, we met with the CEO of the petrol company, and now they've started, well, up until about 4 or 5 months ago, they started installing public charging infrastructure in Kazakhstan because of our trip.
See, now it's just like a completely positive shift in.
And there's over 20 to 25 chargers already in Kazakhstan.
So if you were to do it again, you now believe that would be a significantly easier trip, or
not
there's
really.
Still countries that are very much still barren?
Yeah, I mean, for example, the Kazakhstan chargers, when I spoke to them, they've got Astana they're both, the main capital is Astana on the east side, far east side of Kazakhstan, and directly down south of that is Almaty, the previous capital. So I was explaining they should put a little highway in there and test that, because that's the main road in Kazakhstan.
Right. Yeah.
So test it in there first, and then from there, then they can expand.
Right.
Because obviously, just now the battery ranges, people aren't going to buy 30 kilowatt lease, for example, or a Renault Zoe in Kazakhstan and drive the whole length.
Yeah.
We need the bigger batteries for them.
Yeah.
But between Almaty and Kazakhstan, it's not that big a deal, so that works, and that's what they've started doing just now.
Excellent. That, like I said, absolutely an epic journey. Just enthralled me completely. So what's next? So you've done all these crazy stuff, and could probably continue to do crazy stuff. It's worth mentioning that you and James done a amazing thing in terms of James came down from Aberdeen in the Twizy, and you were on an electric
on
bicycle.
An e-bike,
and do you want to just tell the people what that was in aid of?
Yeah, so we a friend of ours, Jan Bartsbank, he lives in Ireland, and him and his wife have got a young daughter called Alice, and unfortunately when she was 6 weeks old, she was diagnosed with basically a heart condition, and which basically means she needs a new heart.
Yeah.
So we decided that we've always wanted to do a trip in a Twizy. James did his epic Twizy trip a while back, and I was a little bit disappointed because he was leaving Aberdeen without me, and I'm thinking I wanted to do the trip with him. So we decided to do something.
Excellent.
And we were going to do a Twizy trip together.
Yeah.
But obviously after I completed the Guinness World Record on an e-bike, we thought, well, let's use an e-bike.
Yeah.
So I started racing on an e-bike. So he drove, and I cycled for 483 miles. And the idea behind it was, throughout that whole thing, was to share the GoFundMe page for Yang and raise as much money as we can for them. And it was quite a good motivator for me, because I have an ability. People wonder why, or my wife even wonders why I do these things and how I can just kind of just zone out to things.
Yeah.
I have the ability that when I'm on these trips to just go into my own little world, and no matter what pain I'm going through or whatever kind of tiredness I've got, my body just deals with it because I'm able just to focus on other things and keep myself motivated. And it was quite needed for this trip because 483 miles, I don't cycle.
Yeah.
I'm not a cyclist. I didn't train. And I thought,
jumped on a bike.
Yeah, just jumped on the bike, and I thought whatever pain I go through, it's nothing compared to what they were going through.
Absolutely,
So,
and again, it's an absolutely amazing thing. And if you do want to donate, I'll put all the GoFundMe page below as well. 100% do that. They're a fantastic family and need your support. Okay, so I suppose just last thing then, really.
Yeah.
What's next for you? What's your next plans in terms of plug-in adventures?
There's a kind of couple of little things in terms. It's going away from adventures at the moment because I've recently become a STEM ambassador.
Yeah.
And what I want to do is work a lot more with the kids and work with them and teach them more about electric vehicles and charging infrastructure, solar panels, wind, and see how we can help inspire the kids through adventure and through the stories that I've got to basically get involved in renewable energy and engineering, science and maths, and become the future of the country, because we're building all this infrastructure, we've got all this technology, which is great, but who's going to look after it? Yeah, who's going to look after it and make it even better when we all go? So we're spending a lot of time with schools, universities, colleges.
Awesome.
And also, a lot of the work I'm doing now is predominantly as well around, as you were saying, about being a speaker and stuff. So I'm doing a lot of guest speaking at the moment and sharing some stories and the education and the knowledge that I've got. So building more upon that at the moment. Because adventures are great.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's great to do that. But it's no point in me having all this knowledge and experience if I don't share it with people.
Yeah, absolutely, and I can't wait to see what happens next. Great, well, Thanks, Chris. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And be sure to tune into the TheEVside to check this out. If you did like this, please like, subscribe, share, and like I said, donate to Alice's cause. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
We hit the car with multiple charges.
Where's my energy? Where's my energy like?
Colin, you amateur.
Sorry, mate.
I'm only joking.
I'll cut you out, it's fine.
Cut me out.
No, my energy.
I wasn't here.
Upstairs and down towards the Giga Theatre. They're right beside it.
No, you're all right, mate.
Start again.
You're going to be guilt-tripped for that for ages now.